Welcome to another episode of ResearchPod. Today we're looking at a new way to calculate the cost of home battery storage and whether one is actually worth buying.
So this paper is asking how a homeowner figures out the right battery size actually save money.
Exactly. Right now, most people either guess or rely on a salesperson's recommendation. This study tries to replace that guesswork with a precise financial calculation.
How do you even begin to turn something that messy into a clear, math-based answer?
Think of a battery like a water tank. The power rating is the size of the pipe, how fast water can flow in or out. The energy capacity is the size of the tank itself. You need the right balance for how your household actually uses electricity. A huge tank with a tiny pipe is just as wasteful as the reverse.
That's a useful way to frame it. But how do you collapse all of that into one number a homeowner can actually use?
The paper uses a metric called the levelized cost of energy storage. The idea is straightforward. It calculates the minimum price per unit of electricity the battery needs to deliver in order for you to break even over its entire lifespan. Installation, degradation, everything included.
So it's your personal break-even point. Why is that so hard to calculate well right now?
Because most existing models treat a battery as a single thing with a single price tag. But in reality, batteries have two separate costs. One for how much energy they can store, and one for how fast they can move that energy in and out. If you ignore that split, you end up sizing the battery wrong, either paying for capacity you'll never use, or bottlenecking yourself on power.
So the paper separates those two costs. How does that actually change the calculation?
Once you split them, the total cost depends on what engineers call duration, how many hours the battery can run at full power before it's empty. Think of it like a phone battery. A phone that lasts 12 hours at full brightness has a different cost profile than one that lasts 2 hours. When you know your household's typical duration, you can find the exact combination of tank size and pipe size that makes financial sense for you specifically.
And the break-even point shifts depending on that duration?
It does, and that's the key insight. There isn't one universal answer. The right battery size is different for a household that runs heavy appliances all day versus one that just wants backup power for a few hours at night.
Okay, so the model finds the sweet spot where your savings on electricity equal what you paid for the battery. But savings compared to what exactly?
That's where the price premium comes in. When you have solar panels, you generate electricity during the day. Without a battery, you sell that surplus back to the grid at a relatively low rate, and then buy power back at a higher rate in the evening. The gap between those two prices is the premium. The wider that gap, the faster a battery pays for itself.
So the battery is essentially exploiting that price gap, storing cheap solar energy instead of selling it low, then using it instead of buying high.
Exactly. And that gap varies enormously depending on where you live and what your government's energy policies look like. The paper tests this against two real markets, Germany and California. In Germany, the rate paid for selling solar back to the grid is relatively low, which creates a clear financial case for storage in many households. California has a more complex mix of state rebates and surcharges, but the paper shows the model handles that too.
So it's not just theory, it can actually be applied to real policy environments.
That's the practical value. It turns a tangle of utility tariffs and government incentives into a single comparable number. You can look at your own situation and ask, is my price premium large enough to justify this investment?
What about costs that don't scale with battery size, like paying an electrician or getting a permit? Those are the same whether you buy a small battery or a large one.
That's an important distinction the paper makes carefully. Fixed costs like permitting and installation are separated from the costs that do scale with capacity. If you lump them all together, you end up overestimating how expensive it is to go slightly larger, which could lead you to buy a battery that's too small to actually cover your needs.
Does the model stay useful as battery technology gets cheaper over time?
The study accounts for this directly. As technology improves, both the energy cost and the power cost components decline. The paper includes projections for future years, so a homeowner planning ahead can see not just whether a battery makes sense today, but when it might cross the break-even threshold if it doesn't yet.
Are there situations where the model breaks down?
The authors are upfront about one key limitation. The model works with average hourly energy data. That's fine for most household planning, but it can understate the value of a battery for very short high-power events, like charging an electric vehicle quickly, or running heavy air conditioning during a heat wave. Those spikes happen faster than the hourly averages capture.
So it's a tool for steady, predictable usage patterns. If your electricity needs are erratic, the optimal size it suggests might be off.
That's a fair summary. The authors suggest that future versions of the model could incorporate real-time grid pricing to handle those cases better. But for the vast majority of residential planning decisions, the framework gives a much more reliable answer than the guesswork that currently drives most purchasing decisions.
It's a meaningful step, turning what's usually a leap of faith into something you can actually reason through.
And that's ultimately what the paper is offering. Not a crystal ball, but a structured way to ask the right question. What does this battery actually need to earn? And does my situation make that possible? Thanks for listening to ResearchPod.